Hi everyone, it's me, Miss Heather. I have two crafts for us to do today because it is in fact craft day. So why don't we head on inside and get that started. So our first craft is a glowing fantasy scene on a jar. And so all of the supplies that you need are pretty common. If you don't have any of them, feel free to substitute with something else from around the house. For the jar, I've actually just used an old salsa jar that I washed out, so you could use just something left over from the kitchen. So in this first step, we're just going to make the wash that's going to cover the jar. So you just need some water, a little bit of clear drying glue, and preferably acrylic paint, but you could also use food coloring. Now my paint here stayed a little chunky. I decided to roll with it and just see what happened, and I actually really liked the effect that happened. Once it's all mixed up, you're just going to go ahead and coat the jar with it. It's not going to look super see-through yet, but as it dries, it'll become kind of this translucent color. Once you're all done coating your jar, that's when the real magic happens, and you can start designing all of the pieces that you're going to attach to your jar. I decided to go with a castle and a dragon, but honestly, you can do whatever you want. You could also play around with different types of paper. So here I'm just using a solid construction paper, but you could try something like tissue paper, which I'll use later, or even just lined paper or regular printer paper. If you use the printer paper and want to color it, I would suggest using crayon or colored pencil, because if you use markers, washable markers, the color might bleed into the glue mixture as you're painting it on, which, if that's something you want to try, go for it. See what happens. Now here I'm going to use the tissue paper. So I'm using tissue paper because it's not going to be as opaque as the other pieces of my design that I've created. So it's going to add kind of this light layering to the picture that I'm trying to create. And I'm curious to see how that turns out. Now that all of my pieces are cut out and my jar is dry, I'm going to go ahead and start layering these images on. So I need another batch of glue mixture. This time we're going to skip the water and we're going to go straight glue because we want it a little stronger to hold this paper onto the jar. I'm adding a little more of the color back in just to kind of make sure we make it even bluer than before. So one thing you need to know is you need to paint under each piece and also over it to make sure it sticks on really well. As you're adding each piece, you might want to make sure that you coat the entire jar again with the glue mixture so you don't have any areas that are either darker or lighter than the others. Now that the layers are dry, I'm going to go ahead and use some additional acrylic paint to add some more layers to this creation. So I'm going to add some grass around the base. I'm covering the bottom of the jar as well so that the light doesn't escape out the bottom when it's dark. And depending on the look you're going for, you might want to use a couple layers of paint on this. When it dried, it was a little splotchy, you can kind of see. I went back again and I did coat it twice. Same with the lid. Depending on the color of the lid, you may need to give it a couple layers to make sure that that solid color comes through the way you want. And it's not necessary, but I thought it would be a fun thing to try, is to go in with some lighter colors of paint and add little details in areas just to kind of see what happens. I know I say a lot that I'm just kind of trying things as I go, and honestly, I do that a lot. It's fun to just try things and see what happens, especially when you're making art, because something you might be hesitant to do might be one of the best choices in your creation. And you won't know until you try. Once the whole thing is dry, this is when we can add our tea lights. So I have little electronic lights that we're going to use, and they're super easy. They have a switch on the bottom, they turn right on. You can get them at the dollar store, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just going to plop those right inside. And even in the daytime, this thing looks pretty cool already. So now we're going to really see. Honestly, I love these. Super fun project, super easy. Can't wait to make more of them. This next craft is a simple marionette. Again, most all of the supplies you need are common household items. We're also using some recycled materials for this one again. So we have a paper towel tube, some milk caps, and some soda bottle caps. If you don't have those things, just substitute them for something else, or you can make them out of paper if you need to. Whatever works. We're going to start by doing anything that needs to be painted first. That way it all has a chance to dry while we're making the other parts of the craft. So I'm making a frog print, so I'm going to paint everything green to start with. Once everything is painted, just set it aside to dry. We've got some other stuff to do before we need those pieces again. For instance, I'm going to start by making my frog prince's head. I'm just using regular green paper. You don't need anything super special to make this. I'm going to add some googly eyes to mine. If you don't have googly eyes, just draw eyes or use other colored paper to cut the shapes out and attach them. I'm also going to add some other details to this frog print. So I'm going to give him a tongue that's going to be curled up like he's trying to catch a fly. And then I'm also going to add some details for his body. Because we're creating marionettes, we need their arms and legs to be able to move. So rather than using paper or cardboard to attach them, we're actually just going to use yarn. So I found some green yarn lying around the house just so I can kind of match my frog's look. But if you need to paint your yarn, feel free, or just use mismatched colors, who cares? Now, I got a little overexcited here. I went ahead, broke out the glue, and I attached all of my frog's pieces to the body as soon as it was dry. I found out later I probably should have waited because it was extremely difficult to make the armholes with the face and belly attached. So you can attach them now if you want to, but I might recommend waiting until you have all of the holes poked in your body before you attach your head. For this next part, we're going to use a pencil to poke holes in some of our pieces so that we can attach the yarn. I want everyone to be extremely careful when you're doing this, and please have an adult help you if you need it. Once you have the arms and legs fully attached, just put it aside to dry because we have another part we have to make. So this is going to be the part you hold to move your marionette around. So you need one piece of string in the middle that is going to hold the body up. So tie that right on. And then you're going to need two more pieces, one on each side, and these are going to attach to the arms of your marionette. Once your marionette is dry, we're going to start attaching it to the handle. So you want to attach the body string to the back of your creature so that the attachment area is kind of hidden behind the head. And you can make this as long or short as you want. Just make sure that you leave yourself enough room for the arm strings to be longer than the body string. Once you're ready to attach the arm strings, you want to make sure that all of the strings are fully extended and that your arms on your marionette are down so that when you pick it up, your arms aren't already straight up in the air. If you have that distance measured out, go ahead and make a knot in the string, and you're going to glue the knot inside the cap like you did with your arm attachments. Then, once that glue is dry, your marionette is ready to go. Thanks for crafting with me this week. It was a ton of fun. I'll be back again next week with 2 new crafts. And don't forget to add your creations to the Brentwood Creative Share on our website. Thanks, everyone.